What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Third episode of CMA podcast. It is growing. It is growing a lot. When I say a lot, I'm exaggerating. It is growing at a very slow pace. Please, from the start, I'm asking you guys, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, please. We need to grow this, and it needs to grow at a much faster pace. So, as promised, I'm back today to tell the story where I almost took steroids. It's not a very, it's a funny story, but it's not a very, I think I'm hyping it up to be more than what it is. So, apologies if it comes across as that after the fact. So, if you hear it and you're like, well, then I apologize. So here we are. Okay. Obviously, steroids in sports is a huge topic for discussion because there are people with, horrific amounts of testosterone in their systems that are not belong to them. Now, again, like 2020 and 2021, I'm not a doctor. I don't know a lot about what is going on with certain topics, but the world is suffering from a severe case of credentialism right now, and this has been the case in sports prior to the pandemic and otherwise, but you have to be allowed to express your opinion on a certain topic without someone down your neck saying, but you're not a doctor, but you're not a scientist. And I get that. And I'm not a doctor, believe it or not, and I'm not a scientist. But from the evidence that has come out over the years in sports, people have tested negative for certain PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, essentially, where they later admitted that they took it for the majority of their career. That is the case, especially in fighting, where, I don't know if you guys are up to speed on USADA. They're the company that came in association with the UFC and took over the testing of the fighters to the point where these certain fighters were on a trajectory of win streaks, and then this company come in, and then the evidence shows that coincidentally their win streaks went to nothing years after the introduction of this company. The Golden Snitch, Brendan Schaub has referred to this guy as the Golden Snitch, Jeff Nowitzki, and he single-handedly came in. He's the guy, I think, that busted Lance Armstrong, the cyclist. Apparently he went through trash and found evidence of paraphernalia that would be involved in the drug use. And with steroids, people think that steroids, the use for steroids is to get the chiseled Greek god body. And it's just not the case. People are very uneducated as to why people take steroids in sports. If you're a bodybuilder and you take steroids and you've got biceps and triceps for days, the pecs, the six pack, the glutes, whatever the case may be, you look at a chiseled bodybuilding body and immediately people think steroids. A lot of the times they're correct. A lot of the times they're not. You don't know. But you see these fighters that have these mediocre dad bods and are riddled with steroids. Why? Recovery. Recovery is the reason. You take steroids, you can turn a 6-month recovery into a 3-month recovery. And steroids are not illegal. They're like banned in sports, like banned in competition. But if you never competed and never did a sport, steroids are medication. People take steroids to get better, to recover. And people think they've lumped in the casual fans have lumped in steroids with drug use, cocaine, heroin, marijuana. It's like, oh my God, he took steroids. Scumbag. Well, not necessarily. He took steroids to cheat, to get better in the sport. But it's like Chael Sonnen tested positive for performance enhancing drugs. And it was a very, very delicate situation because he had been doing it and he admitted to everything. But when he got caught with something that he had previously disclosed to the commission. So it was a really strange situation. He was having issues getting his wife pregnant, and he needed injections of testosterone to his system to assist in getting his wife pregnant. And he disclosed everything in a form. He told the commission, he told the UFC, he told everybody everything. I'm taking this. This is why I'm taking it. As embarrassing as it sounds. Now, there were cases where he took stuff that he shouldn't have taken, not for the purposes of what I just disclosed to you, but it's really strange how it all works. And with the John Jones situation, the whole picogram gate, is it picogram gate or pico gate? But he took steroids and it remained in his system. He was busted for it. And with what remained in his system, basically came back out when a fat cell released whatever he took previously that was stored in his backside. So it's a really, really strange topic for discussion because there's so much science, there's so much information that's being thrown back at you by the sources that are trying to keep it covered up and dulled down and whatever the case may be. But with what happened with John Jones was special because he was let fight knowing that he failed a drug test. Now, he failed a cocaine test for recreational drugs prior. They knew about that too, but that's a different story. That was for recreational purposes. PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, were in his system on 2 separate occasions. And he was let fight the second time, even though he tested positive. I think it was Alexander Gustafsson. What they did for him was insane. They moved the entire event from Las Vegas to California. There were fighters that were like on the way to Las Vegas that got the news a week before the fight. Okay, shit's going down. We can't get him licensed here. We asked California State Athletic Commission, can we license him here based on the data? And they said yes. So they moved the entire event. It was insane corruption with what went on with that. But steroids in sports is a huge topic for discussion, and it has been around for many, many years. Some of the cleanest, most respected athletes in the world tested positive for steroids. When I started doing this, when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I started in my first jiu-jitsu school, and I was super, super skinny. I didn't start to put on proper weight until I moved to Switzerland. I blame fondue, the beer, and the Swiss chocolate for that. But I was super skinny. When I say super skinny, this was my first fight. That was my first boxing fight. And I fought a guy pretty much twice the weight as me. It was an in-gym fight night. I ended up winning 52 jabs the entire fight. I never threw my right hand once. I was so scared. I cut weight in my first MMA fight. I was already super skinny. This is what I looked like. 77 kgs. At the time, I hadn't been 77 kgs since I was 12. But I was always super skinny. And there was a guy in the gym who was not super skinny, who was a specimen. He was ripped, absolutely ripped. Every time he put on a t-shirt, just looking at his arms going, bro, do you have license for those guns? No gi, he would be topless. And I'm like so scared that he was going to crush me with his he was just ripped. So after a few weeks of getting to know him, I asked him, man, can you help me? I need to get ripped. I need to not look like Kermit the Frog anymore. And he mentioned steroids. And I immediately got scared because I know about steroids from the news and people who took steroids getting their medals and their trophies taken from them. So I said, what do you mean steroids? I was expecting him to come back to me with a diet plan. Just chicken. But no, he said steroids, and I was immediately on the back step. I said, what do you mean? And he said, steroids. It's the way to go. And I was new in the sport. I was a UFC fan. I wanted to become a fighter. I wanted to train hard and have my first fight. This was about maybe 6-7 months before my first fight. And I remember I asked him, but where do you get steroids? You can't go to a pharmacy. I can't go to my doctor and say, hey, I want to compete in sports. Can you get me steroid prescriptions? I knew that as an ignorant 25-year-old, maybe I was 25. So I said, where do you get steroids? And he said, well, I can get you a course of steroids. And I said, yes. And it was €500 cash. And I gave him the €500 cash the next day. And he came back to me about a week later with a course of steroids. Now, I will admit to you that I had no idea that it involved needles. At the time, my entire assumption was that steroids were pills. So he said in the gym, come out to my car, sit down, and I'll explain how you do it. So I get in his car. And it's in a business park. So there's no people walking by or anything. And it's late at night. All the businesses have shut down. The gym is open, but there's not really that many people in the gym now. And I sit down and he says, here you go. And there was about, 5-10 little cylinders of the actual testosterone. The same amount in needles and syringes, and then a box of pills. So you take this every day, and this, you hook it up here, you flick the air out of the vial, and you just into your butt cheek, and there you go, and you do that. And I'm like, hang on a second, what? Needles? You got to be kidding me. And I said, I can't do this. I just cannot. I won't be able to do this. I am terrified of needles. Every single time I got a jab or a booster or got my bloods taken, I was in hospital for a couple of weeks when I was 16. I always fainted with needles, getting anything done. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do this. And he said, don't worry, I'll do it for you. And I thought, oh, great, cool. And then I thought, I'll do it for you. What? You're not like a licensed nurse. You're what? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it for you. I've done it for quite a few people. And I thought, all right, cool. So I took the pills and put them in my bag, and he's hooking up the syringe in with the vial of testosterone, flicks out the air, and he says, give me your butt cheek. All right, sure. Here's my butt cheek. I was sweating in the car. Now, I had one of those jiu-jitsu rash guards on, and it was prior to training, and I just felt the heat sweat inside like I'd been in a sauna. And I said, hang on a second, man, I'm feeling very lightheaded right now. You're going to inject my ass with steroids, with the testosterone. And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, here we go. Okay. No sterilization, no gloves, nothing. I had a tracksuit on, and I pulled out my right butt cheek. I was in the passenger seat of the car. I turn around, I close my eyes, and I count to 10, and he's still not done it. And he said, here we go. And I just went, stop! Sweating. I can't do it, man. I can't let you inject me. I can't do it. I just cannot do it. I was so scared because I just remember thinking, he's not a licensed nurse. He's not medically trained. I've been brought up better than this. I know you're not supposed to put needles in your ass. So I said, I can't do it. Now, I want to sit here with a microphone in my face and tell you that I chose not to do this because it's just not the right thing to do. I want to be able to tell you that, but I can't tell you that with a clean conscience. The only thing that stopped me from doing this thing called steroids was my fear of needles and the fact that the person that was administering it all was not a pro. Now, his physique spoke for itself. My two legs together were one of his arms. I will not name him, obviously. But I just did not think at the time that that was the right thing to do. And not the fact of doing the steroids, but the fact that I didn't want this to happen that way. So I threw my hands up. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, my nose, my chin, you name it. And I said, I can't do this. I'm sorry, man. I just can't do it. And I didn't ask him for a refund, but the first thing he said to me was, cannot get you a refund. You're stuck with this. And I understood. And I said, fine, no problem. So I took the pills. I took the syringes. I took the vials of testosterone. I stuck it under my gear in my gear bag with the zip. I trained. There was no hard feelings. I didn't ask for a refund because I knew, like, guy code is you don't ask for refunds and things like that if it's black market or whatever the case may be. So I took the steroids back to my apartment and I put them under my bed, and they stayed under my bed for a year and a half until a friend of mine said, Dave, do you know anywhere where I could get a course of steroids? And I said, look no further. He's like, what? I said, I have a course of steroids under my bed. So we went back to my apartment, and I got the steroids a year and a half later. I don't even know if there's an expiry date on the steroids. I don't know if it has to be used within a month. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. But I sold him on the steroids for the $500. He said, thank you very much. He took him straight away. I think it was like a month course or a month and a half course, maybe a 6-week course. And yesterday, I just saw a status on my Facebook that I screenshotted, because after 3 months of him doing steroids, I told him I couldn't get him anymore. But after 3 months of him doing steroids, he must have gotten 2 more months of courses. He started posting pictures of his body on Facebook or whatever it was. Maybe even Bebo back then, I don't know. But I saw this on my Facebook yesterday, and I had to screenshot it and put it on this podcast because I saw the picture and I immediately just made a joke. But, I mean, he looked fantastic, but at what cost? He was doing that for bodybuilding, not competition, none of that. He was just doing that for himself, and that's absolutely fine. It's not against the law. It's not illegal. You're doing nothing wrong. For competition, different story. But that's my story. Now, fortunately, I was drug tested for my fights. And I think it stays in your system for 5 years, maybe 2 years, I'm not sure. But after that, I had my first fight like maybe 3 months later. And then I fought consistently most months, like once a month, maybe once every 2 months. After that, and I was tested. I did have to get blood work done for my first boxing fight. That was horrible because I fainted in front of people. And as a fighter, you don't want to faint in front of anybody. So that's my story. That's the story of steroids. I mean, look at the befores and afters of fighters' careers. Vitor Belfort comes to mind. Have a look at Vitor Belfort. Before steroids. Or not even before steroids, sorry. That's during steroids and after steroids. That's the reality. But I'm glad I didn't do it. I'm glad my fear of needles took over. I'm glad that... I'm not glad that I can't sit here with a clean conscience and say to you guys, I took the moral high ground here and decided that it was the wrong thing to do. It was my fear of needles that kept me back, and I'm okay with that. Because life is a journey, you know. So, I hope I haven't disappointed with my steroid story. It is 100% truth, fact. I'm probably going to get a few private messages asking who it was. You're not going to get the answer. I would not out someone like that. But it was a fun time. I remained all that skinny right up until 2012. And it was fun. I had a fun fight. I won't call it a fight career, but a fight stint. I really enjoyed it. The regular fighting, cutting weight, putting on weight, competition, weigh-ins, popularity, people watching you fight, the humility of losing, the fun of it all. So, thank you very much again for listening. I appreciate your ears. I'm going to say, without a long explanation on this time, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't done it already. We have many views. We have not so many subscribers. We need the subscribers. We need the like button hit. We need comments, questions, funny observations. Hit me with whatever you want, guys. I need your help on this one, please. Thank you very much again for listening. And we'll talk to you again very, very soon.